You ever wonder how an epic movie story actually gets made? You might think it all starts with a camera or a huge special effects team, right? But a lot of the time, it starts with something way simpler, a text document. In this explainer, we're going to pull apart a creative brief, line by line, to see how a complex, emotional world can be born from just a few powerful paragraphs.
All right, let's get right into it. It all kicks off with this single mission statement. This one sentence is basically the North Star for the entire project. And you got to pay attention to the key words here: high quality, cinematic, and dramatic story. This tells you right off the bat this isn't just going to be some cartoon. The goal is to create something that feels like a real film with some serious emotional weight. So, okay, that's the big vision. But here's the real million-dollar question. How do you actually do that? How do you take that one line and build a living, breathing world? A world with a specific mood, a pulse, and a story that people will actually connect with? Well, that's exactly what we're about to break down. So here's our game plan. We're going to follow the brief's logic, almost like we're using a camera zoom lens. We'll start way out with the big picture vision. Then we'll zoom in to build the actual scene. We'll meet the characters, find the emotional heart of it all, and finally, look at the specific directing choices that make it all work.
Okay, first up, the vision. This is the bedrock, the foundation of everything. It just reminds us that every single detail we're about to get into all stems from that one core mission: create a powerful, cinematic world.
Now let's see how that vision starts to get some skin in the game. Section 2, painting the scene. You can't have a story without a world for it to happen in, and this brief is incredibly smart about how it builds an atmosphere of tension and, desolation from the very first frame.
Now this is so cool. The very first detail the brief gives us is the time of day, sunset. Think about that. That is not a random choice. All that orange and red light instantly sets a mood. It's the end of a day, a moment of change, and it casts these long, dramatic shadows over everything. It's basically telling you how to feel before you've even seen anything else.
And then the brief gives us the setting: damaged buildings and drifting dust. Now notice what's missing here. There's no big battle, no explosions right in your face. Instead, what we're seeing is the aftermath. And that's brilliant, because it shows the cost of the conflict way more powerfully than any action scene ever could. It's a story told through silence.
And here it is, our first direct instruction for the camera. The camera slowly moves forward. So why slowly? Well, a slow, steady push-in builds suspense. It forces you, the viewer, to lean in, to scan those empty streets, and it creates this deep sense of unease. It's a classic filmmaking trick to put you on the edge of your seat. So you pull all these little pieces together, and suddenly you have a complete picture. The ruined streets, the abandoned cars, that smoke on the horizon, the jets overhead, and those little flashes of explosions way in the distance. All of it works together to build this rich, lonely, and totally believable world. And we haven't even met a single character yet.
Okay, the stage is set. It's tense. It's quiet. Now, who walks onto that stage? That brings us to Section 3, A Boy and Soldiers. The entire story is really built on this powerful contrast, this collision of innocence and experience that creates all the tension. Just look at how this is laid out. On one hand, you've got the boy standing up on a rooftop. He's a civilian, an observer, looking out at the big picture, the horizon. He represents vulnerability, right? He's alone. But then, down on the ground, in those narrow streets, you have the soldiers. They're tactical, focused only on what's right in front of them, the immediate threat. By putting these two totally different points of view in the same space, the brief creates the engine for the whole story. But, a story about war can't just be about cool shots and tension. It needs a heart. And that's exactly where we go next in Section 4, finding the human story. This is where the brief zooms in even closer, past the big wide shots, to find the real emotional core of what's happening.
The brief makes a really important choice here. It specifically tells the camera to turn away from the soldiers, away from the boy, and to focus on these little moments: civilians helping each other out, a medic working on someone who's hurt, a quick glimpse of families huddled together inside. This is a huge clue. It's telling the creative team that the real theme here isn't the war itself, but the humanity and the resilience of the people who are caught in the middle of it. So, we have the world, we have the characters, and we have the emotional theme. But how do you make sure the audience really feels all of that? Well, that takes us to our last section, directing the drama. This is where the brief gets technical, giving specific instructions to crank up that emotional impact.
And here it is. This is the key to the entire mood. The instruction says the lighting should be dramatic and emotional. So light isn't just there to let you see what's happening. Its job is to make you feel what's happening. In this story, the light itself is basically a character, and its only job is to underscore the seriousness of every single shot.
So what does dramatic lighting even mean in practice? Well, think of it like painting, but with light and shadow. It's about creating really high contrast, deep, dark shadows right next to bright, focused beams of light. What this does is it tells your eyes exactly where to look, but more importantly, it heightens the emotional weight of everything, turning just a regular image into something powerful.
And that kind of brings us full circle. We started with one sentence, and from there, this brief built an entire world. It introduced us to contrasting characters, it zoomed into the human heart of the story, and then it used the technical craft of lighting to make us feel the weight of it all. Which really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? In a story of war, where does the real drama actually lie? Is it in the big, distant explosions, or is it found in the quiet moments, on the faces of the people living in the shadows?